Okay, good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to tonight's hearing for the board to hear public comment on the portfolio recommendations. I will note that first we have a Spanish language interpreter. For this hearing, Mr. Daniel Carrion. Could you stand up so folks can see who you are? Thank you very much. If you need interpretation services, please see him. Second, while we do have a list of people who have signed up for public comment in advance, if we make it through this list and it's before our end time, which is 7:30, I will open the floor to comments for people who did not get an opportunity to sign up. So thank you very much. We're going to have a quick presentation and then we'll open up for public comment.
Yep, and I'm going to be very quick so that we're focused on public comment. So I'm Angela Alvarez. I'm the Executive Director of the Office of New Initiatives. On November 12th, we presented formally a list of recommendations that impact a variety of our schools, our facility spaces, and land spaces. And so tonight is the COMAR hearing for members of the public to testify directly to the board. There will be another opportunity for members of the public to share testimony on December 17th, and the board will make its final decision on January 14th. Schools impacted by COMAR recommendations are George McMecken High School, Sarah Roach Elementary School, NACA 2 Freedom and Democracy Academy, Mary E. Rodman Elementary School, Curtis Bay Elementary Middle School, Baybrook Elementary Middle School, and the Grove Park Building. In addition, there are 16 parcels of land that the board is considering surplusing. For our members of the public in the audience, as well as those viewing online, a detailed report of all the recommendations and everything that's considered, including non-COMAR amendments to 21st Century Plan, are all included on the annual portfolio review book that can be found on the district's website. You can just type portfolio in the search and it'll take you directly to that book for a detailed list. Additionally, we have a proposal for the board to approve conducting 5 feasibility studies that impact 8 schools. There's a possibility that the district will hopefully in this next legislative session receive additional capital funding that would allow us to potentially renovate high school programs. We will renovate in this order as many of these schools as possible with those funds, recognizing that it may only get us partway through this list. So that's the Douglas Building, exploring potentially creating a shared campus between Frederick Douglass High School and Joseph C. Briscoe. That's Baltimore City College High School. That's the Baltimore Polytechnic High School and Western High School. And then Francis M. Wood, exploring creating a shared campus for Vivian T. Medical Arts Academy and the Bluford Drew Jemison STEM Academy West, and then Emerson Westside High School. With that, I'm going to open up to members of the public.
Thank you, Angela. First, we have Darlene Miles. Is Darlene Miles here? Okay.
Good evening. I want to thank you for allowing me.
Mind pressing that little button on there so we can, yeah, there you go.
Okay, good evening. I would like to thank you for allowing me time and space to speak. I'm a special ed teacher at George W.F. McMecken High School. I come here for the board to hear that we're not just a high school servicing children with exceptionalities. We're a high school, we're a family. We invest in our students. We care a lot for them. We go beyond the call of duty for them. Our kids, we try to present them with opportunities that they might not have in a regular setting or a high school setting. My principal, Tamika Daniels, has put in place a lot of programs to get our kids out into the community. Is something that she truly believes in. I am the career readiness teacher. We provide them with opportunities to get job skills that they might not get in a high school to just serve kids with special needs. We have a lot going on, and we're a family. We're not just a school that comes to work every day. We really invest in our kids, and we care about our kids. So when we were told that it was recommended that our school was closing, we just wanted to come and let you know that this is not just a school, it's a family. We care about our students, we work with them, we go beyond the call of duty, and we really would like, if the school is closing, for the transition to be just as smooth as possible for our kids. We worry about our kids being bullied. We worry about them being, for lack of a better word, afraid of the changes that are coming down towards them. So we would like, if the school is recommended to be closed, that we could stay together and make the transition as smooth as possible for our kids. We would even like for the board to think about housing us all together in one unit and keeping the name of George W.F. McMecken, not losing that name and what it stands for and what we've tried to achieve in the years that we've been open and working with our kids. And that's all I wanted to say. And thank you for allowing me to speak. My other co-workers also have something to say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are you Lance Jackson?
Yes, I
Okay,
am.
well, first I want to thank you, Miss Darlene, for coming in. And Lance?
Yeah, well, Ms. Miles, first of all, I'm Lance Jackson. I'm the adaptive physical education teacher at George McMecken.
Yeah.
I got a gem voice. I speak loud. I don't want to speak too loud in the mic. But I'm the adaptive physical education teacher at George McMecken, and I've been working there now for 7 years. And I'm not sure if anybody know what today is. Today is actually December 3rd, and it's International Day of Students with Disability. So it's only right that we are actually talking about this today. So it just goes hand in hand that
Nice.
we're talking about it.
I didn't know that.
Just to piggyback a little bit off of what Ms. Miles said, the main thing is that we're a family. And I understand all the things that they say as far as the building is concerned, but we just hoping that we can keep the spirit of McMecken alive. Like, you can take the building, just keep us as a unit together, and that's staff and students. Because nobody knows, well, working with the kids as long as we've been working with them, nobody knows their needs, I think, better than us. So I think the transition from these students going from one school to another, we're just hoping that we can all keep them collectively together. Like I said, I've been working at McMecken now for 7 years, and I've noticed that students that have graduated still come back to McMecken in different capacities, either speaking at graduations, joining different functions and stuff that we have. So it's more than just, once you graduate, they're gone and we don't see them no more. These students still come back to us, like, for various activities. Not only that, we even have a student, I've only been working there 7 years. We have a student that graduated, I think, about 20 years ago that worked in our cafeteria. So it goes to show that, like, McMecken is just more than just a school that operates. We're a big family, and I'm just hoping at the end of the day that we can just all stay together. So that's just my main thing.
I appreciate that sentiment. Thank you, Mr. Lance. We have Rosemary, is that Corner? Cartel, okay.
Good evening. Actually, I have a couple of letters from my colleague, and I'm going to present it tonight. I don't have a chance to come here, but I'm going to, read my letter. And I really think about it before I wrote this letter. I hope you will give me a chance to read everything. And by the way, I am Rosemary Cartel, and this is my 9 years working at Baltimore City Public School. And I've been in McMecken for 8 years, and I really love the school. I really love our kids. And I strongly believe that, closing school is neither in the best interest of the district nor its students. And I'm asking to please be more forward-thinking and consider the long-term effects of school closures rather than focusing on the short-term bottom line. I'm sure that school closures will result in larger and more crowded schools, especially with our kids. Our population, most of our kids, they cannot really, stay, in a larger group. Most of our kids, they're more comfortable in a smaller group because with their disabilities, most of them, they have very short attention span, and they will learn more in a one-on-one, instruction. So, and we all know, and beside that, our school has a lot of, facilities. We have like swimming pool. Our building is really large. It's really big enough for our, because most of our kids, they move around. They really need, a spacious, a big space for them to move around. And then, and I also believe that, with our care, with our love, it's not actually, I call my profession not a profession, it's more on vocation. We really spend, spend our time, our love with our kids. We really want them to grow, to become more independent. I hope, you are going to give us, more opportunity to be with our kids rather than to send them, without us. I'm really thinking of our kids. What will happen to them if they will be going to send to another school? I'm really afraid of that. I really wanted them to follow wherever they go, because they really need us. For me, that's all. Thank you.
Oh, Rosemarie, do you want to share those letters with us? You can give it to our board executive, and he'll make copies for every board commissioner. Oh, you've made copies. There we go, Rosemarie. That's what I'm talking about. There we go. While we're doing that, we have Denise Bitterman.
Hi.
Hello, Denise.
Hi, everybody. I'm Denise Fitterman. I'm the speech pathologist at McMecken. I wrote a letter too, so I'm just going to go over that, if that's okay. So deciding to close a school is never an easy decision to make. From where I'm standing, though, it seems like the decision was made without considering all of the data. We are more than just academic performance, enrollment trends, and conditions of school facilities. We are more than just space utilized and maintenance costs. We present to you now the data that you've yet to consider in your decision. I hope you listen to what we have to say. I hope you really take to heart the input from the staff, students, parents, and community members. I hope that the decision to close McMecken is not set in stone like it seems, and I hope the public meetings and votings are not just a formality. First, the plan to utilize McMecken for swing space is completely possible to do without closing our school. We have an entire extra wing of the building that can be used for swing space. The letter that we got said that was one of the reasons that they wanted to close. And if you are going to use our building for swing space, then you would have to maintain it regardless of if our 50 kids are in the other section of the school. Next, according to the board, we only utilize 18% of our school space. You could use the rest of our school for other purposes without having to close the school. The annex could be used for professional development meetings. It could be used for after-school events. It could be used to house like a Head Start program. It could also be used to store like city schools documents. Also, we have our pool, like Ms. Cortell mentioned. We also have a sensory room, which could be used for special events for other students in the city that have disabilities. Maybe they could come out to the school and use that as needed. Furthermore, our school could be opened up to middle school students, and that would increase the enrollment numbers. And then, most importantly, our students, I don't feel like they will make progress at Bear School or Claremont. From what I understand, that is the plan, to separate them to whatever of those schools that the parents want them to go to. So Bear School is an overcrowded school that supports K-12 students. Firstly, with it being overcrowded, I don't think our students will receive the special focus that they need. Secondly, since the school has all the grades, there is no specialized attention for the high school grades. Our students need curriculum and educational planning that is geared to them. They need social events that Bear School doesn't really do, like the school dances and the Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts. They also need they need independence and leadership building activities such as job shadowing and training. And also Bear School has medically fragile students, and a lot of our students can be physically aggressive, so that might be a little bit of a dangerous situation for those students. The other thing about Bear School, a lot of our kids started there and they ultimately were sent out to us. So Bear School determined that they couldn't make progress there. So to send them back doesn't necessarily make sense. As far as Claremont goes, from what I understand, they are moving Claremont to a wing of Patterson High. And that's kind of scary because our kids probably shouldn't be around typical kids all that much. A lot of our kids aren't used to being bullied or being teased, and they're not, even if they're in a separate wing, they will somehow encounter the typical kids, whether it's during fire drills or during bus loading or anything like that. And then they could be bullied, they could be teased. Our students thrive at McMecken because they feel safe and respected. They do their best because it matters to their educators. If our students are subjected to bullying, which they don't really encounter at our school, they likely will shut down and stop making progress, or worse, they might act out and hurt somebody. We have a lot of students that might look like a regular kid, so like typical kids might not realize. And like I was saying, they could be teased or hurt without even knowing. So I didn't think Claremont was necessarily a good place for our students either. And I'm not going to keep reading because it only says I have 1 minute left. But the point really is I don't think our kids are going to make much progress at Bear and at Claremont. And at the end of the day, that's what it's about. You know, you want our kids to make progress. And I don't think they would do really well at either of those schools. So I'm not going to finish the letter, but that's all I wanted to say.
I appreciate your comments. I actually would like your letter, if we could have a copy of it. You mentioned some things that I did make note of that I would like to talk to the staff about, so thank you.
Yes, I copy already.
Oh, we have that one already? Okay, perfect, thank you. We have Cedric Berry.
That's me.
Hi, Ced.
Yeah, how you doing? First, I just want to start off by saying I'm kind of blessed to be there. I've been in the system since 1994. I was surplused about 3 years ago, and I interviewed with Miss Principal Tamika Daniels, and I talked to Miss Cortell at that meeting, and they told me it was a family atmosphere, and it's definitely a microcosm of a family atmosphere. It's definitely that. But when they told me that, you know, you had to toilet these kids and you got to feed these kids, and I never been a part of that environment before. It was kind of, I don't know if I really want to do this. But once I went to the school and met the kids, I made the decision to be there, and I'm just telling you, I love it. And I love greeting the kids every morning, and I just feel like a bodyguard to these kids, like I'm their protector. And I just have grown to fall in love with them. And when I got the news that, you know, they was contemplating or making that move to close the school, it really hurt me. And I don't really speak in public forum that much, so excuse me if I don't articulate myself as I should, but I'm just saying I wish somebody would give this a second thought and maybe just come to the school and kind of visit the school and visit the kids. And when you get a 260-pound kid, and my name is Mr. Barry, and he runs the hall and he say, "Mr. Barry," and he hugs me going at 100 miles an hour, almost knocking me down. That's kind of touching. And for you to have to tell them that you won't see them again, or they won't be coming back to that school, and with them repetitious events that they go through on a daily basis, and having a great core of people kind of dealing with that. I mean, that's touching. It really is.
I really appreciate you coming out here, Mr. Berry.
Thank you.
Mr. Berry. So I do want to ask, since you guys are all together, before we go to our next speaker, which is about a different school, have you all as a team visited the Bear School or Claremont? And
I actually worked at Claremont
Okay.
for, what was it, 2 years ago. Actually, Dr. Jackson assigned me over there because they had lost their adaptive physical education teacher. So I'm accustomed to what their style is like as far as just from a physical education standpoint. But I watched how the building was ran. And to me, I'm glad that they're moving out of that building because it's almost as big as this room, the building, and it's just very inclusive, and it wasn't a good environment to me. Not saying that the students, I love the students, I love the staff, but it's just the environment that the kids are in. To me, I feel like it does the kids a disservice. So
Right.
it's good that the kids are transitioning to another location. So
Okay.
I haven't did anything at the Bear School. I'm not sure if anybody can speak on the Bear School.
Could you come to the mic, because I'm very curious to hear.
Again, my name is Dolly Miles. I actually worked at the Bear School
Okay.
in the capacity of a paraeducator. I found it to be rewarding, working with the young and teaching them how to talk and everything, but I love the high school kids even more. One thing that I liked about working with children with exceptional needs, that they're grateful for whatever they learn how to do. Teaching them how to feed themselves. They're grateful for that and toileting themselves. It's a level of appreciation that you wouldn't, and I didn't see in regular schools that I started out in. And it's a difference between Bear School and our school. Teaching children with exceptionality is in place of children that are in regular special ed. It's a
Okay.
difference. You feel like you should be more protective of them. They kind of become your own. And I enjoyed working so much that I transitioned from a paraeducator to a teacher because I went back to school to get my degree because I wanted to be in this setting so much. And it's even more gratifying to teach them and watch them grow and see at the high school level you can implement so many different things as far as teaching them to be what you would call lifelong learners. You see them get into a skill and they like that skill and they find out what they're good at, and you can kind of build on that and then watch them go out and come back and tell you how successful they are.
That's good.
And that's the difference between Bear and, because we're working at that level where we see them go out the door.
Yeah.
And we see them go into the community, and we see how they interact with the community. And we take them on public transportation to get them used to riding in public, because a lot of them are protected by their families because they don't want anything to happen to them. So they trust us. When you get that level of trust from the families, that's what makes us feel more like they're our family. And we are one family because we have that level of trust from the kids and their parents. And it's, and they trust us to take them out in the community and teach them things and allow them to grow. And it's nice watching them grow.
I really appreciate all of you for coming out here tonight. Like I said, I did jot down some of your points that you made, and I'm going to talk to the staff about it. I wanted to ask my fellow commissioners, do you guys have any questions for our friends at McMecken? Anyone? Okay. Oh, you can. Oh, you'll give the questions to staff. Commissioner Brooks was just saying his questions are for the staff, so he'll email those questions to the staff. But just so you know, we are organizing a visit to your school as well. The board commissioners are going to come out to your school. So thank you all for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Next on our list is Corey Leach.
I gotta push this right
Yeah.
here. Evening.
Oh, make sure it's green at the bottom.
Oh, all right. Good evening. My name is Corey Leach, and I'm the Community School Site Specialist for Sarah and Roach Elementary. And the reason we really don't want our school shut down, well, I'm here on behalf of the parents and the community. So some concerns that we have with the school merging with Mary E. Rahman is transportation. That's one of the biggest issues because the parents, along with our representative for 21st Century, took a 40-minute walk to get to the school on a good day. Now, nobody factored the weather, the hazards going between Sarah and Roach and Mary E. Robin, like Baltimore Hilton to Mulberry Street. And a walking bus stop was recommended, but that's not really guaranteeing the safety of the kids. Also, they recommended parent transportation in a safe route. That's not guaranteeing the kids will take the safe route, because they might take a shortcut getting to something that's supposed to, or getting a crossfire or something that they really didn't have no business being in there. So that's one concern. Another concern was the emotional status of the kids, because it's like some of them don't transition easily, so the transition will affect them, affect their learning, affect their parents. They don't want to go to school. Sorry, I wrote down my points. Oh, and another thing is before and after care, because Sarah and Roach offers daycare for parents who has multiple children and younger children, so that way they can drop their kids off at one place instead of just having to go to multiple stops. They could one stop and go to work. I don't believe Mary E. Robin has daycare services provided, so it would be harder on a parent as well, because then they got to go one place and then go to another place, and it's just like sometimes some parents can't afford to do that. Some parents don't have the means of transportation to do that. So it's just like they got to pick one kid or the other, or they don't have the help to get both kids to where they need to go. And that's it on my part. On my behalf.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions? All right, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
All right.
No, I had no idea. I'm the president of the association. I actually went on that walk.
Well, you give me a second, because there are chances that I will be able to come to you. I have one person who signed up already that I want to get to first, okay? And that's Sharon Brown.
Hi, I'm Sharon Brown. I'm from Sarah and Roach. Sure. Can you hear me? Oh, okay. Yeah, so I actually went on the walk to Murray E. Rodman, which took us about 40 minutes going, 40 minutes coming back. And that was on a good day. And we ran into quite a few obstacles, so I know his complaint that he wants to discuss. But for the most part, we tried to, question about the crossing guards, and Alicia said that they would allot us 2 crossing guards for the kids. We talked about, the major streets they had to cross, which was like Baltimore and Hilton, Caton Avenue, Frederick, because the kids are, spaced out in different areas, so they're coming from all different locations. Right. So our concerns were, how we wasn't involved in the planning process for the transition of us going to Murray E. We had no invites and none of that. And we wanted to know if the kids could get the corner-to-corner transportation. Because she said they couldn't be bused because it was less than a mile radius. And we wanted to know what was the city doing to ensure, the community safeguard once they closed Sarah and Roach down. And will a partner school support our programs that we have? And that touches on Ms. Leach when she was talking about the before and after care, the daycare piece. We have the band piece. We have different partners. So we just wanted to make sure that, all of that would be able to go with our kids when they move to Murray E. And we wanted to know, will we be a part of the budget prioritization? Excuse me. And I talked about the walk. So yeah, that was pretty much all that we wanted, to make sure.
and to be sure that, the Sarah and Roach community is also going to, if we're merging with Murray E., that we be a part of all the planning process with Murray E.
Okay. I do know that we have learned a lot as a district through the 21st Century Schools, how we've collapsed some schools together. And so our staff has been very thoughtful about making sure both school communities have times to come together and to think together and to plan together. So that I know we can do. You did mention some things, like it looks like you're reading from a list. You have questions.
Right.
I would
had my
love
questions.
if we could have a copy of those
Sure.
questions, because we could send those to our staff and try to get some answers for you. And so our board executive, Christian, is here, and he'll give you his information.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Sharon.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. So that, Ms. Sharon was the last person on our list of people who pre-signed up. You can make your way forward. We do have some people who didn't get a chance to sign up but would like to share some thoughts. So just give us your name and you can share your thoughts after that.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sakia Baskerville, and I am a parent as well as an auntie at Mary E. Rodman Elementary School. So just to let you guys know, Sarah and Roach, we want them to come to our school. My child went to Mary Ann Winterland prior to going to Mary E. Rodman, and some people were like, what are you thinking? You're going from worst to worst, this, that, and the third. But once I went there, like you guys said, met the staff and got the concept of the 100 for 100 project, I knew this is where my son needed to be. They differentiate. Having smaller class sizes has proven to help a child excel. So we're right now at like 22 to 27. Bringing in Sarah and Roach, it might be 30 to 35. So if that is the case, we just want to make sure that the staff is full. We're fully staffed. We want to ensure that our programs still continue on. We want to make sure that all children with IEPs, ADHD, mental health, any of those issues are serviced. We don't want to bring in more babies and then just have the staff that we have. We want to make sure we are fully equipped to take those babies on. Now, transportation is an issue because that transportation equals attendance. So if they can't get there, attendance goes down. Right now, we're at like a 90 percentile in our attendance, and our kids are being bused from Emerson Village area to the North Bend area. That transition we were afraid of too, because our kids are coming from this small area to Baltimore City, Baltimore County. But like I said, our school, like everyone here says, their school is a family. And we have built that structure. We have built that commitment to making sure our children get the best. As a parent, I think that all children deserve the best of the best when it comes to education. So like I said, closing schools, it's not always the best thing, but it's understandable because I've been to one of the walks and things of that sort back and forth, communicating with people from Sarah and Roach. So I know that that area, a lot of people have moved out. It's not a lot of children in that area, but the children that are in that area, they appreciate the area that they're in, the family, the structure, the support that they have built. But like I said, we are welcoming as Mary E. Rodman family of our fellow kids. We just want to make sure they have everything that they need to make that transition smooth. And that's all I had.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I know that there was a presentation in our teaching and learning meeting that was right before this meeting. I just wanted Commissioner McFadden to share what you whispered to me about the school that was presenting.
Well, Mary Rodman is outperforming the district and some schools in the state. I think it is, in one of the assessments, Chief Davis, I want to say it's I-ready, it may be. But to that point, too, I've been to the swing space, to where you all are now, with Principal Guzman, and he's doing an incredible job. And when I showed up, he didn't know that I was coming to the school. But to actually see the students engaged in learning, classes are smaller. He's going through all of the processes and routines of his normal day. My question to you would be, you're in the swing space, you're not going to be there forever, but how is the busing right now for the swing? How is that? How is that, the busing?
It's great.
Because I know that there was an issue at first, like there was this fear, like you were talking about, we're going to be busing out all of our kids to this swing space. So can you talk about how that's kind of played out since you've been in the swing space?
We have a lot of families, so it's like big brother, big sister, or we have my cousins or neighbors. So like I said, making sure that our kids are safe all the way around the board. We have people there at the bus stop getting on, not just the parents, but we have sometimes staff members there to make sure kids get on the right buses, folders, the bus drivers, as well as aides. Once they get to the school, we are doing the same thing. So once they're leaving school, we're doing the same thing to make sure that our kids, if you're on the blue bus, you're in the blue line. They have wristbands, they have everything to make sure they get to and from safely. And like I said, not to mention the older kids, we don't, want to put too much on older kids, but they have stepped up to say, hey, well, he lives in my neighborhood. I'll make sure, and things of that sort. So it's been great. And then when we have meetings, the parents were worried about not being able to get back and forth. We have made a way that if we have a meeting like today, we have a bus that come get the parents and bring them. So it's no, excuse as to why they can't be engaged, because we try to provide as much as we can.
That's amazing. Thank you. And your whole thing is, I just want the resources to come with the extra
Yes, ma'am.
students that are going to
Yep.
show up at our front door, and I think that's fair.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the gentleman behind, thank you.
Hello, how you doing today? Yeah, my name is Ricardo M. Anderson. I am the president of the St. Joseph's Community Association. I have been to several of these meetings regarding this transition that you all have proposed. I've actually been with Kyle Leggs, the city planner, with several of them as well, and he was actually on the walk with us. We walked this area, and it took us approximately 45 minutes to get from one end to another end, and that's directed focus from adults, not little children at play. This was in ideal conditions. We walked past dilapidated housing, structures that a kid could possibly be kidnapped or hurt in. We walked past drug areas, high-level drug areas that I know well because, like I said, I'm the president of the association. I'm also the treasurer of the Southwest Police Community Relations Council, so I am in with the majors, the commissioner, everyone. I know the areas that are hot spots. The crime rate in the area that you're sending our kids to is much higher than the crime rate in the area that they're coming from. The test scores so when at the onset of your proposal, Sarah M. Roach was testing and had produced test scores which were much higher than Mary Rodman's. So you're punishing, it seems like a punitive action to take against kids that are actually doing well, to not only uproot them from their area and from their school, but to transition them to an area that's also worse in crime. The Lexington Street is one that rings a bell. There's so much activity between gang violence. There was a double homicide in the 200 block. This type of stuff, these are the things that aren't things that these kids have to deal with now, that you are now going to expose them to, because you have come up with a grid that Mr. Leggs showed me that says that they're not within a linear mile away, so they don't qualify for public transportation. But even though it's not a linear mile, it's more than a mile because you don't walk a straight line. There's no straight line through the neighborhood. You have to walk and make turns and make rights and lefts. Also, along this route, there were more than 30 crosswalks that you expect 6- and 7-year-olds to traverse on their own. It's absurd. From a cost-benefit standpoint, I don't see how this stuff makes any sense. I have a master's in financial management. From a cost standpoint, I would no-go this project. It makes no sense. Like, what's the net gain? You had a building that was already at capacity. You had scores that were hitting the mark. And you didn't have to move the kids. If your end goal was just to give these kids opportunity, the equipment that you're going to get, since their brick and mortar is in perfectly fine shape, minus a couple cosmetic issues, and you had just put in a new HVAC system not that long ago, like there's no real reason to close down this building outside of the fact that you want to say that you did something with 21st Century. It makes no sense, and you're exposing these kids to risk. So who's going to own the risk if this happens? Who's going to own it? Because I know the crime stats. Matter of fact, the vice president of my association, she was actually at one of the corners that the kids had to walk by. And she was out there, and there was a 70-some-year-old man, her approximation, who had to hit the deck, dropped his cane, hit the deck when the guy started shooting, while she was out there. Like, this is where the kids have to walk by. There is no one going to be walking with them. There's no crossing guard right there. There's not going to be anyone to patrol their walk. And even if they 21st Century had mentioned something about like some kind of mobile bus where the parents act like a bus and they walk along the route, but other than the parents telling the kids to duck, what else could they do in an environment like that? Because she watched this man hit the deck. Now, as a 70-some-year-old man, he had the wherewithal to understand, like, hey, people are shooting, let me get down low. 6-year-old may not understand that. Who's going to own it? If this is what you're exposing them to for no real net gain, outside the fact that you said that, okay, I've merged 2 schools and made it better for one. But you're putting the school that with the kids that were at a higher percentage of performance at a disadvantage. That seems very unfair.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions? Thank you. Thank you for coming out tonight. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to share something that have not been able to sign up? Okay. Oh, yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Renata Plummer, principal at Sarah M. Roach Elementary School. I sat back and I allowed the parents to work together, to talk together. And one thing that I have been emphasizing to them, that change is hard, but it's good. And I also encourage them to just make sure, as transitions are taking place, that they get what they need for their kids. And I'll stand on that. So if safety is an issue, I encourage them to yell about it. But they need to understand that these changes will benefit their kids. And so if the changes are going to benefit their kids, I encourage them to step out of the fear realm and go into the realm that they know that's going to grow their kids and expose them to the opportunities with the technology and all of those other things. So I'm behind them 100%. However, when you're thinking about change, a lot of times, regardless of who you are and where you are, all kinds of things come into your mind. So I'm going to sit here before you for them and say the same exact thing that I've said to them again. Make sure that they get what they need, especially in the safety realm. Because nobody wants to send their child out and they not come back home. We have a responsibility to make sure that they're in a place where they can grow and know. I do know that Principal Guzman is doing a fantastic job. I know that they have additional monies, and what one of my parents was talking about is the fact that in the beginning, when all of these things were going on, Sarah Mary Rodman had been zero-based. And I think that's what they're really, gearing toward. But as I explained to them, that they got all kinds of resources that are helping the students to grow. So I encourage them to step back and allow it to take place. However, work hard and work with Mary, even working with Mary Rodman, because some things has not happened that should have happened, as far as 21st century is concerned. And I'm being honest, some things have not happened. The parents weren't included in many of the decision making. Sarah and Roach was not invited to have any input on the development of the school, the renovations and all of that kind of stuff. And even whether they listened to them or not, they should have been included. So basically, that's what I wanted to say. I encourage them to take the step. Change is hard, but in many instances, it's good. And I'm going to encourage them continually. Just stand up and make sure everything that you need for your children, you get. Thank you.
Yes.
Principal Plummer, I just want to thank you for coming tonight and appreciate your advocacy for your school community. What I also want to say that it's tough to think that there are schools within our district that are receiving specific resources and other schools aren't. I know that Mary Rodman is a part of the 100% program, so with that comes additional things. And I think it's a larger conversation that we need to have. For example, you know, the bills that are being proposed in Annapolis right now, school construction, you know, that will be House Bill number 1, and then Kerwin. Those additional resources will better support our system so that all of our school communities will have access to the resources that we know that our children need. But to that point, Ms. Alvarez, would you mind just talking to us a little bit about how our population is declining and how, in essence, we really can't afford to operate the amount of schools because of the decrease in our enrollment? And the reality is the enrollment in the population is declining. That is a trend that we're going to see moving forward. So can you talk about that a little bit?
And also, can you also add to that the dialogue around ways in which we might get these two school communities in communication?
Yeah, so on the first part about, so in that area, even when so this is part of the original 21st century plan. So, you know, these are schools that are in the early phases. So this, you know, was a recommendation that comes from many years ago. And at that time, we saw enrollment declining between the two schools in that community, and that trend has continued. Sarah Roach has continued to have less and less students just because the population and the community has changed. So there's not enough students to sustain two elementary programs. And so, you know, for members of the public, as a district, we fund schools on a per pupil basis. So the number of students that a school has directly connects to a school's ability to afford programming and to staff its building. So we made a decision a while ago to give more control at the school level rather than at the central office level. I think that's a nuance that a lot of people don't necessarily understand, because many of us come from a time where most school funding was centralized. So it's central office determined how many teachers a school had, so everybody sort of had the same thing based on size. But the thinking around per pupil was to actually give more control to school leaders and school communities so they could determine whether or not they needed specialized programming to meet the needs of their population. So they can make decisions themselves about, do I add an after-school arts program, or do I really need more social emotional health, or so they can make decisions around their school that most meets the needs of their students, that the people closest to the ground should have control over the funding. What's complicated that change is the declining population that we've seen in certain pockets of the city, including in Southwest Baltimore, where Sarah Roach and Mary Rodman is, and that we haven't been funded appropriately for too many years. So just to echo what, your statements, Commissioner McFadden, is we really need people to really be pushing for Kerwin. There's a lot of conversation. That's a big thing. We need to be appropriately funded by the state so that all of our schools are affording it. But that aside, to be healthy as an elementary school, you want at least 500 students. And so when you're less than that, then schools are having to make really kind of very hard decisions around how they staff. And that means then students are only getting the bare minimum as opposed to everything that we really believe they deserve. And so that's kind of the logic behind combining schools. The second thing is really important to us in this process that all members of the school community are invited and are part of helping to make decisions into everything from the design of these buildings, into the programming, and into how the two communities come together in one. So it's disheartening to hear from many people today that they did not feel included or invited. So I will definitely follow up with the team and make sure that we get outreach because it's important. One thing that I know is definitely set up to happen, and I will definitely follow up. One of the things I want to say for people in this room is there's a steering committee process that's part of the closure process where you share your contact information. I know there was already one steering committee meeting held at Sarah M. Roach. So if you're a person who has testified in this room, and a lot of the questions that were shared tonight are questions we got as part of the steering committee. So there's answers that are coming back as it related to that, and there's another meeting set up. But if you can please make sure that Principal Plummer has your contact information, so we can make sure you're included in any meetings that are going forward. We'll figure out what happened with the past. I don't know what happened with the past, but I definitely want to make sure from this point forward that everybody that's included, that wants to be included, because that's important. We're getting ready to head into budget season. So we've already had conversations at the staff level to ensure that the school family councils of both schools and the school communities of both schools are included in input into Marion Rodman moving forward. So that is kind of set up. But yeah, and just encourage you, if you're in this room and you didn't participate in the steering committee process, that you share that information with Principal Plummer. We also have, is on this slide deck and is on the public materials, a web address that you can send. It says Annual Portfolio Review Questions is the full name of it, but it's linked in all of the public documents. You can also send your contact information to that email address. It comes directly to me and to my staff, so we can follow up with you too to make sure you're included. So those are just multiple ways to make sure that people are included.
Thank you very much, Angela.
Yep.
Is there anyone else in the audience?
I just wanted to piggyback on some of the stuff she was saying.
Okay,
Yeah, okay, so.
okay. I'll give you a couple minutes.
Yeah, so I was at some of those meetings that, where the two schools were to be together, and at the one, the construction company was there, so there's gonna be inadequate parking. Principal Guzman said that it was already a traffic nightmare in the mornings, in their current location, without the other school even being a part of it.
Okay.
There hasn't been anything done to mitigate that. Also, he himself said that he doesn't expect majority of the kids from Sarah M. Roach to come there. He's not he's not budgeting for them to come there. He hasn't allocated much by the way of resources for them to be a part of it. He even said that if it was his kid, he wouldn't have his kid walk that walk. How warm and welcoming do you believe that is? And Alicia was at that meeting, so you can, make sure I'm not telling any fibs up here. Yeah, but this is kind of absurd. It's not a welcome environment. If the principal is not even believing the kids are coming, and they're being nice right now, maybe because they're at where their boss is or whatever, you all hire them, so they're being nice. But what happened is their meetings that they were supposed to have were more or less sabotaged. He had things where they wanted the kids or something to hang out with each other, but instead he wanted them to play basketball against other. Like, come on, they have staff that are 80 years old. They're not doing anything like that. And he more or less made it kind of inconvenient for them to work together. And he's pretty brash as far as his attitude. Like, pretty brash, like very curt human. And I assess people pretty quickly, and yeah, he's pretty curt with his responses. That's how he is. I'm like, it doesn't seem like a welcoming environment at all. And I would hate to send, like, my kid's not going there. So, but my kid's already in different school, but I wouldn't send anybody's kid to that environment. More violence, unwelcoming, a walk that is, the majority of Sarah M. Roach kids live in the area that will not be bused. The majority of those kids will have to take that 45, I say an hour, because, like I said, directed focus from adults is one thing. With kids, a leaf is a distraction. Anything is a distraction. An hour walk. That's some stuff from the 1970s and 60s. Who walks an hour to school anymore? And this is, now you add in cold, snow, rain. Come on. Would you do that to your kid?
Thank you. Thank you. We're going to conclude our meeting at this point. We do have 4 board commissioners here, and so you may be someone who was too shy to come to the mic, but you definitely want to tug on our ear a little bit and talk about anything. It doesn't even have to be our topic tonight. We'll hang around a bit so that you guys can have some one-on-one time with each of us, okay? So, when is our next meeting? Our next board meeting is Tuesday, December the 10th. Our public meeting starts at 5 p.m. And so I'm hoping that we can see many of you there as well. What time is it? 6:32. Meeting's adjourned.